and welcome to Healthy and Active in the Couve. I am personal trainer Nick Medlock, certified through NASM. I also do nutrition coaching, which we'll talk some nutrition today. But with me, as always, is Dr. Trent Corey, Doctor of Physical Therapy. And we should link, but we just got done with a panel where we were with the American Heart Association, and we were discussing the heart health effects of Ozempic and other things like that. And I had a good time, and I appreciate you being on the panel, Trent.
Of course, yeah, it was great. It was a great conversation. Had a lot of good talks from people. Just brought up a lot of good conversation on a hot topic that's big, is the GLP-1s, I believe.
Yeah.
Got to get my letters right.
Yeah.
But yeah, just really good talk about what the effects are, how that helps, or what are the things we got to be aware of. And so we talked a lot about that, and we had some great panelists who were able to speak to that quite well. So I'll do my best. Like you said, you'll do your best to kind of have a good discussion here to kind of recap what we learned and what we can share with people who weren't able to make it that day. So
Yeah. And with some things that I found, I know I've done a lecture on Ozempic and Wegovy and the other GLP-1 agonist drugs that are out there. And I did a lot of research on that because I wanted to have a good discussion and talk, because it's a hot topic, and I wanted to have thorough knowledge. So for me, my go-to always is, what can we do naturally? What can we do, like as far as the idea of, if we don't have to cut it, can we untie it, kind of an idea. So I am not opposed to using drugs, medications, and surgeries, but I always like to look as a last resort if possible. And so in my initial lecture on Ozempic, I displayed all of the pros and cons the best that I could, and the cons for me were overwhelming, and not worth the investment of money and investment of risk for your body. But hearing, as I called it, boots on the ground from the people who are prescribing it and dealing with it, a lot of those side effects are from overdosing the drug or overprescribing it, and not having good follow-up with the procedures that you have to do while you're on the medication, which is behavioral changes and things like that. So what I found was that while you are on this drug, you have to have exercise, or else you'll lose muscle mass and bone density. And also you have to have a change in diet. So now my methodology is, you have to do that anyway when you're personal trainer. And there are things that I have found that can mimic a lot of the effects. But for example, if you take the Mediterranean diet with a higher focus on monounsaturated fatty acids, it does a lot of the same work with the same hormones, but it's like a difference between 30% and 300%. So the drug definitely is kind of like a giant boost as far as the percentage, but the side effects are, it kind of can dehydrate your body. It slows the metabolism down a lot. And where you get into the weeds, not the weeds, we get into the dangers. We can get into the weeds all we want. But is that at the higher dose ranges, it really amplifies that dehydration process for like the kidneys and things. And if you're not hydrating a lot, you can get kidney damage, or I think damage to your spleen, things like that. But you lose muscle density, muscle mass and bone density because of that. But not as much at the lower doses. So like a lot of people are doing half doses or lower doses and getting really good positive effects that we were finding out in the lectures. And a lot of good side effects mentally, as far as like reduce addiction and things like that. So I learned a lot from doing that, and there's a lot of fear that was taken away from me for a lot of my clients who are on it. So I'm able to be even more encouraging while they're on it, because they're doing the right things with me, focusing on diet and nutrition, as far as the kinds of nutrition that they may not be getting in because the metabolism is slower. So we talk about supplementation and things like that. But then the specific exercises and bone building exercises and muscle density, or flip-flop that around, muscle building, bone density. But so it got me excited to be able to cooperate with practitioners who are prescribing Ozempic. And one thing that I loved at the end was that you led us through a meditation, and that made my week. I was so happy, and I was excited. So excited. I said nitrous oxide instead of nitric oxide because what I've been studying in breath work and meditation is the more we hum and sing and chant and do like a lot of the things you do in breath work and in meditation and mindfulness practices, it creates nitric oxide in your body also. So, and what we found out from Jeff Grimm was that they're finding nitric oxide is being created a lot with the drug in the heart. So it's helping to rebuild some tissues in the heart, which I thought was really cool.
Yeah.
So those are some of my big takeaways was a reduction in fear and concern in the way that they're dosing it when they're properly dosing it.
Absolutely. It's like we'll have this like yay or nay, argument or whatever. And it's like usually with most things, like we talk conservative or liberal, it's like there's usually some sort of truth that's kind of in the middle. And
Right.
we just have to be using common sense with each person. And you're right, like some people can lose this weight like really quick, but obviously the effects of those are not really maybe as long lasting, but also have these drastic negative side effects of like losing bone and muscle tissue. I mean, that's like insane. You go, oh my gosh, that's so scary. And so we need to make sure that we combine it with those things that we need to do that are healthy anyway and are like sustainable activities that we need to get people onto. And like the effects of like when you have something that creates less overall loading on the heart, right? Like the bigger you are, the more tissue you have, your big 300, like you said, your story. I mean, like when you have more mass and everything, how that has to push through all those tissues and how much more load that works on the heart. If there are some effects of like, hey, can we do something to help you lower that whole load for the heart, especially since I forget what the crazy astonishing fact was that he reported that like maybe you said it was the risk of like the chances of you dying of a heart related issue is like I forget what the number. It was insane. Like it was
Yeah.
it's most people
Yeah.
is going to be something related to this thing in the middle of your chest not working anymore, right? So
For one, killing males and females right now.
totally right. So no matter what. So I found that to be really revealing. Another thing was how this, like you mentioned, addiction. So how the gentleman who is prescribing them at the Metro Clinic, he was talking about how that created this overall satisfaction, right? But he kind of said it that way. It's like, the way people will describe when they're taking this, that they're like overall generally satisfied. So like these impulses are less. And I
Yeah.
thought that was just absolutely fascinating, how it's creating some degree of satiety with just not only just diet, it's obviously like, okay, we're taking something so I just don't feel hungry. Those are those side effects of feeling kind of barfy and gross, and constipated, and you're slowing things down. But are you just generally feeling like not that urge? And it's the things we do in meditation. You mentioned
Yeah.
meditation when you can just calm yourself down and just say, like the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. I'll just be, I'll just be fine. Like, and you don't feel like you're in that constant state and there, so many things are going back and forth in monkey mind and how we just want something and there's always some sort of impulse and how media is trying to get you to buy stuff or whatever, right? You can
Yeah.
just calm down and just be in that state. It's kind of interesting how maybe we can meet it on some end, at least understanding the mechanism to what that's creating, right? Like, wow, okay, we're taking this thing and it tends to help that, but then also understanding that when we do things like exercise, it's one of the, I mean, you just come around. We just talk about this over and over again, like how much it turns all the way around to just going, we just need to be more active. The things
Yeah.
that we do, the exercises that we're doing, pumping muscle and getting all those good endorphin flow and blood flow and all these things, nitric oxide, all these things that are just your internal pharmacy, just trying to activate that. So there is something maybe that there's on the artificial end from the outside going in, but the more we can kind of activate inside going out, can we find a meeting point
Yeah.
where dosage isn't as important? Can it be a nice bridge to the
Yeah.
point where it is? And that was one thing they talked about. Like kind of the joke was, well, how long do you go until you're not taking it anymore? And they're like, oh, never. You just never, and that's I think about Eli Lilly and like, well, they want people to take things forever, right? So how can we create a thing where we can help that process along and do it in the healthiest way possible for longevity?
Yeah. Well, I've got a few clients that are on it, and the more I talk about it, the more they're talking about it. And so, one approach is that I've taken. I always want this holistic kind of mindset. So I do refer a lot to mental health practitioners because I have a firm belief, and I think a lot of research shows that early childhood trauma and abuse can lead to certain diseases, including obesity and things like that. And when you're looking at an obesity kind of epidemic in America, if we're not talking about that and addressing that, like you said, the monkey mind in somebody who's got abuse and PTSD or even complex PTSD, that's constantly spinning and re-triggering and that movie's playing all the time. And it's different than just remembering it, you're reliving it. So your hormones are just on this explosive concoction and mixture of stress hormones. And that can really wreck your body. So if you're not mindful of what's going on there in the first place. And I like that Jeff and all of you on the panel were kind of speaking to this. If you go on the drug and go off of the drug and you don't change the mindset and behavior structure and habits, you're going to gain all of that back because those habits are still there. That mindset is still there. So number one, I always think, find the root cause of most things, and in that case for me it's the mind, the brain structure and behavioral patterns of your thoughts. And so I can coach that to a certain point, but I always refer that trauma stuff to a trauma professional. And then after that, your gut axis, gut mind axis, if you're working on the microbes of your body, the microbiome and everything, with all the nutrients that we know, and all the supplements that you can take with herbs. I love herbal supplements a lot. And then really getting like your levels checked on where your vitamin D, B, and all the magnesium and all of that, and working on things that create serotonin and GABA. You're going to get all that satiety in your brain, and you're going to get all that feel good stuff. And then you add exercise on top of it, to help add to all of that, to rechange the structures of the serotonin, GABA, and dopamine and all that fun stuff within your body, and really focus on things on a nutrient level that are not coming out of a box. Something that like I love that phrase, shop around the grocery store, not inside the aisles, because that's where all the whole real foods are.
Sure.
And I think that's a good approach with or without the drug, because either way you're going to have to change your behaviors. You're going to have to change your mental structures of I'm being attacked by whatever stressor that it is. Maybe put the phone down a lot, because that phone is going to create all of those addictive behaviors over and over and over again. We've got more ADHD now because a lot of the things that we just want that instant gratification. So if we can learn to sometimes just be bored throughout the day, that really helps shift our mind. And like you kept saying, I said boots on the ground. You said, why don't we put our feet on the ground? So if we get like really back into the nature of our nature, I think that's a good reset. And if we have to, I know some people legitimately have to have this drug, and so I'm not as apprehensive as I was, as long as it's being monitored well.
Right. I mean, you think of people who are in that quote morbidly, area, where people are really overweight, and then they need some sort of triggering thing to create this, like, this is serious and I need to make a serious change. And, the things we're talking about are just more the gradual thing. And like, since they are so conditioned to that immediate, we're in that, instant gratification culture where we want to see things sooner. Sometimes, just thinking about how we need that reward to be something that gives us, like, a lot of folks, if they're going on a journey like that, losing weight, if you get that first 10 pounds, let's say, or whatever, like in the first couple weeks, you lose 10 pounds, whatever it is, right? And you see the difference, and you can do that through training. There's things, obviously, but like, But when you see it sooner, you get that more linked to that, oh, okay, this is working. But also, there's something where you can kind of realize and you can connect to like why it's so important, and then it gives you a little bit more motivation to maybe do those other lifestyle changes that like, hey, this is, hey, I'm gonna start losing more. I'm gonna, be able to play with my grandkids more. I really need to turn a leaf over. Maybe there's what are, and then you get hungry and excited for
Yeah.
the other healthy habits that are replacements for the old things that can just die. They can just, the old habits can kind of die because you've kind of put yourself on a moment of, kind of this shifting of a change, right? This whole different, different mindset of like, okay, this is how it's going to go. It's like this cataclysmic shift that goes, oh my gosh, this is something that's happening now. I can really tell, and now I'm ready to make that change. I think that could be a huge defining thing for somebody. And if it has to be done artificially, um, you go, well, is it? Does the ends justify the means in the short term? Can get some good effects? It just brings up a good, interesting thought about, what these things can do. But there are a lot of things in trepidation, go like, yeah, of course we want, ideally, but some folks, they need that extra push to something a little bit more. So,
Well, I am a firm believer we all need help from some variety. For me, I needed help from trainers. I shared at the event 15 years ago. I weighed 300 pounds, but it wasn't laziness, and it wasn't for not trying. I've been active my whole life. I had actually given up like heavy lifting and bodybuilding to start running 6 miles a day and doing P90X, and I thought I was eating well. I was reading all these magazines, but I was a professional musician, music teacher, and I was a music minister at the time also. So like I ran a whole lot of church functions, and I didn't sleep a lot. So that was one of the biggest things that I had to learn was I had to have a behavioral change, right? So I had to learn that rest is just as important as movement. I had to kind of flip around the current at the time the food pyramid, but I also learned about intermittent fasting then and all the science that was behind that and the microbiome. And so I got through fasting, I got to work out a lot of my emotional behaviors on how I connect with people when I'm irritated, because I'm hungry, right? So it's like you can watch yourself in your behaviors and kind of learn to not be as short with people. You learn a lot of patience. You learn a lot about yourself when you're under that kind of stress. And so my body, my digestive system learned how to rest. My mental state got to learn how to rest. And it made me a better musician. It made me a better pastor. And I eventually became a youth minister and like a secondary pastor at the same time. So I was like, I had to use a lot of those skills to really be able to calm myself and learn meditation and more prayer kinds of things. But after I kind of noticed I wasn't going anywhere, I had to hire trainers. So, like, I had a lot of help from people at church, but I didn't have a lot of help physically. So, I knew a lot about things. I was doing all what I thought the right things. And so, when I hired professionals to help me out, I absolutely loved it. And like you said, when you get that little bit of taste of success, that drove me even harder. So it almost became an obsession. So I turned I turned it into a lifestyle, but also I literally wanted to just absorb as much of that. And I'm the kind of person that if I'm learning something, I want to share it and I want to teach other people. So I was training all of my friends and family at the same time. And then, pay it forward. And then I made a whole shift of career change because of it, going from exclusively being a professional musician and minister to ultimately, when I moved to Washington, just primarily doing personal training and nutrition coaching and life coaching.
yeah, for sure. When you have that motivation, when you see things shift and then you got that excitement for what it's doing and then the things that helped you kind of stay with it. I mean, a lot of it was like, it sounds like was that, you had accountability and you had the desire to share it. I think that's so important that, the desire to actually teach it actually makes you a better student of it, right? So like, we do these talks and, I want to make sure I share good information. Same thing when I do things in the therapy world. It's like, I want to make sure if I'm doing my things right, so I share it correctly and give people those insights, and those kind of help you make that stick better, and you have a obvious drive to create better health and to help others, and that's a huge factor, and that's kind of what we want is like we all need to find some degree of like how we can help with our purpose and what we're here for. And like you kind of said, that self-reflection and all that stuff is so central to, our everyday existence really here. And so learning more about ourselves and what our hangups are, the things we need to focus on, where we need to grow, all those things are super important. So
Yeah.
great.
They definitely are, and one of the things that I liked from our takeaway was that there was some excitement for the positive of the application of this, and the last thing I ever want to do is spread fear, especially when it's unjustified. If it's justified, what to do and how to manage that that
Yeah.
fear. But I walked away a little bit more clear on the dangers of it and the application of it. And so I was really grateful that we were able to have this panel, because I'm seeing a lot in the world where we get specialists that can see and pinpoint a lot of this area, like in here. And then when we pull out to a broader area, the application of the specialty may go against some of the broader aspects of the human body,
Yeah.
So I like the interdisciplinary discussions more because it's enlightening, and you see different angles of the same thing. We may be looking at the same, the same protein shake
Yeah.
thing, but I see the logos and you don't.
Right. Yeah, true. Right. And everything has a risk and everything has, benefits. So we got to kind of figure out and weigh that out. And that's what doctors do all the time. They're figuring out, like, based on the data, what I know, based on this person, will this be a grossly more positive thing than negative thing? And yeah, there are risks. So it's like, okay, as long as we all know and we're adults and understand that there are risks with everything that we do, and that nothing is completely guaranteed, but we do our best to take what we know and do our best. And we may find out later that it's not as helpful, but we're trying to do different things, and just understanding that's how it all works. And that gives you a little bit more central thoughts, because one of I think it was our first talk was on barefoot shoes or whatever, right? Or being barefoot, right? Well, is that the right idea for most people, right? Like most people, if they're running, they just want to do the regular weekend warrior stuff and just be healthy. Would it be best for them to get barefoot and get all, like, yes, it would. I mean, I would love people to gradually get that, but a lot of people, bad news, they're never going to do the things that need to be done for that. So we have to kind of know where people, you got to meet people where they are, right? So that's the same thing with, I do therapy exercises or you do things with your training clients. You have to figure out what things can I get them to do here while I got them here in
Yeah.
in the gym, because I know they sure as heck won't do that later. And so
Right.
can I give them an idea to get them better? So that's kind
Yeah.
of the thing, is get that moving better. So yeah.
Yeah.
So just kind of figuring out where the risk is, meeting people where they are, making sure that that's kind of the thing that we get things going. So
Yeah.
understanding that process is just taking a real view of the whole process of each person and what each of our journeys are, and just understanding that we all got to walk our own paths, and each person needs to take their own responsibility to understand. And that's kind of what we've done on the podcast, is do our best to kind of give people some information, but like, this is not advice, right? We give things of what we've shared, but like, everybody needs to take that responsibility that they're walking their own path. I say this to all of my clients: if they have a shoulder pain, it's like, well, it's not my shoulder. I will show you what you need to do, but you're going to go home with this shoulder that hurts. So you can decide to do the things that I've shown you, or you can totally just blow off what I tell you to. But that's your choice. And so taking that responsibility and giving people the resources that they need to make the best decision and support them wherever they are in that journey. So I think that's super important.
Awesome. I'm going to have to wrap up, but what I want to offer is I've got a list of a lot of different food sources that can activate the GLP-1 hormones. I've got some different mindfulness practices that I can incorporate into all the social media things, where we can get our cortisol levels lower. And I'm sure that you can go over heart math sometime there, but I'd love to do a whole episode on heart math
Yeah.
itself. I think it deserves a whole, a whole 30 minutes with us, or maybe a couple parts, but I think it's fantastic. But if there are any more resources on Ozempic, I definitely have a lot of information that I can share. Again, I'm not an expert. I'm just a person who loves to research and get into the physiology and anatomy of the human being. So yeah, message me if you want more. I will send it. And if you want me to post it for everybody to see, I'll do that also.
Cool. That's awesome. I think that'll be great, Nick. I think the more we give the people give a good summary of what we've learned, and you can lean on folks who have done a little more research, and then it may spur you to do your own. But like, just kind of learn more about what your body needs to do to help each other, help your become optimal health. So I think it's great. So. Well, thanks, Nick. We're going to wrap up today. So thanks so much for joining us for Healthy and Active in the Couve. I'm Dr. Trent Corey from Extra Mile Physical Therapy. And as always, Nick, always great to talk with you, and looking forward to the next one.
I am too. Thank you so much.
All right, you bet. Take care.